Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome to the showdown between the Beastmen led by Morker the Shadowgave and the Dwarves who are going to be led by Ungrim Ironfist. So without further ado, let's jump right into this match and have some fun. So here in the front line, I do have an entire core of the Bestigor herds. I definitely feel like they're going to be one of the safer picks here. They have enough armor piercing to get through most dwarven infantry, well, pretty much all of them. I think they have 40 weapon strength, which is pretty good for great weapon units, and 28 of that is going to be armor piercing. On top of that, they have a pretty fat charge bonus of 35, which synergizes really well with Floor of Death. So essentially when the Beastmen herds come in and for the first couple seconds they're fighting, they're going to be hitting really hard. So if you get a Deathcaster and cast Fate Abuna, for example, on the Grumbling Guard or Norgrimling's Ironbreakers, that in conjunction with the charge bonus can be so devastating to the Dwarves, and you can actually burn through their infantry pretty quick. But regardless, it's still tough, but I think it's a nice little trick there. On top of that, we do have Morker the Shadowgave. He's going to have the Chaos Spawn summons, and I just like him because he's somewhat durable as far as like Beastmen Lords go. Well, granted, yes, Khazrak is probably a little bit tankier in terms of his intrinsic stats, but Morker does regenerate, so even if you make a folly and he gets caught, you can simply run away and heal up, which is always pretty nice. But excuse me. On top of that same note of the Bestigors, I wanted to talk about a couple different schools of thought for the Beastmen. So you can either go with a very heavy Bestigor herd front line to have your armor piercing against the Dwarves, or if you want to, there's a couple different ways. You can get a front line of Ungors or Gore herds or things like that, and then get a bunch of chariots. So basically, just make the decision. Do you want an expensive Bestigor, a combination front line, or do you want to just go cheap and get a bunch of chariots? Personally, I like this style of play. I think it's pretty safe. On top of that, we do have two Centaurs with throwing axes here in the secondary line. They're pretty good against gyrocopters. You can sit them on the flanks and pick off longbeards and miners and all kinds of stuff like that. And you can also use them to harass artillery and range units because they do have 32 weapon strength in melee and definitely aren't pushovers. Top of that, we got Razor Gore Chariots, which are always very good against Dwarves, especially now that they don't have the Tormentor Swords anymore. So you can have a little bit more freedom here with the Chariot play. Armor Piercing, Anti-Infantry, definitely can't complain. You have two groups of Centaurs with great weapons, just Armor Piercing Cav, just to cycle charge and pressure wherever we need them. And I think you definitely have to bring the great weapon variant. The shields are nice against the Dwarves, but I still think that you need the Armor Piercing or else they're just going to kind of bounce off the Dawi. And last but not least, we do also have two groups of the Ungor herds. We have one here and one here in Deep Vanguard. Basically, they're just going to bum rush at the organ guns, and if my opponent tries to defend against them with Slayers, they're basically just going to kill a ton of Slayers. Yes, they will lose, but in terms of like the cost of the trade, it's going to favor you for sure. My opponent's front line, he does have Longbeards with great weapons, so definitely has some AP against my Bestigors, but it doesn't look like he has anything terribly tanky. I mean, yes, Longbeards are sturdy and have pretty good leadership, but the Bestigors are going to give it right back to them. So Longbeards in the front line, he does have Ungrim, he also has a Thane right here, Miners in the back here, so just standard Miners. He does have the Dragback Slayers and Organ Gun here, which is taking some pot shots at my Chariot. Looks like it's done some damage. Then he also does have another Organ Gun over here. So this map, he definitely got screwed a little bit on the deployment. If I were him, I probably would have gone a little bit further back because it looks like he doesn't have like the best line of sight here. Yeah, you can see he's a little bit obstructed, but he was able to get some damage and force me into the trees there. Without further ado, let's get this show on the road. And this will actually be the first of two games, so this is going to be a fat 2-for-1. So hopefully you guys are ready to party. So in the meantime, I do grab my Centaurs with throwing axes, and I will be pushing them up around the flank here. I just want to get some free throws here on the Miners and the Dragonback Slayers to kind of open it up for my Chariot. The Bestigors are going to be coming in the front line, and you can see I do have the high ground here. So Fate Abuna is going to be going down on the Grumbling Guard, and just watch how fast they get melted. Fate Abuna does hit pretty hard. Dwarves have magic resist, so it's not like super brutal, but the Bestigor herds are just going to just so much damage on that initial charge here. So you can see they're coming in, and I think the Longbeards have like a charge bonus of like 10, so it's not going to be as good for my opponent here. But the front line is underway. You can see all the Bestigor herds getting a pretty good, somewhat downhill charge. The Dwarves did kind of charge up the hill to meet us, but I think the advantage of the downhill is certainly going to favor us there. But you can see that these guys are going to get melted really quick, and they are an expensive troop. Granted, they cost about the same as the Bestigors. My opponent is going to saturate with Ungrim, but yeah, these Grumbling Guard are definitely in the wrong neighborhood. And the whole front line is going pretty well. I do summon some Chaos Spawn to the back, which are going to be attacking the Longbeards. On the flanks, I was able to break those Miners with the throwing axes, and that opens up the Chariot as well as the Centaurs to just rush in here. So we're just going to get a fat rear charge right into the back of these Dwarves, the Chariots, and the Great Weapons just outmaneuvering these Slayers here. So we're just going to be sticky and moving. As soon as we're able to hit those guys, we're going to move the Chariots through. Unfortunately, I don't escape with everyone, and the Dragonback Slayers are just going to come in just with a full chub and probably do some pretty good work. But it looks like the natural Chaos Spawn of Morker that just triggers off a low life unit is going to come in and kind of muck those guys up, which is good. So basically the entire Dawi front line is buckling here. There are some Longbeards fighting on the flank. Over here he has a healthy group as well, so he probably is going to win just this engagement. And the center actually doesn't go badly either. Yeah, it looks like Ungrim's able to hold his own, but the Chaos Spawn doing a good job, and my mobile force is just applying a ton of pressure. And now the second wave of pressure is coming in. So the Ungor herds, 120 of them, because obviously you know, his front line broke, so he had to send up the Slayers to kind of help there against chariots and other things like that. And then that opens up the back for these stalking Ungors, and I think they're such a good pick against the dwarves here. They're going to rush this organ gun here, definitely going to take out the crew. The same thing on the far side. You can see we're about to get in there. The Bestigors did break through and got on that organ gun, but right here, these Ungor herds with 120 models are also going to bum rush, so they're going to do a really good job against these miners. And I think Ungors actually have better stats than miners, quite a bit better. Yeah, they would probably win in a prolonged engagement, especially considering they have 120 models, which is pretty insane. Over here, Ungrim's trying to hold his own, so there's a Spirit Leech going down. He does pop the Axe of Dargo and the Axe of Red Ruin, so he's going to be fighting against these Bray Shaman and Chaos Spawn. And it looks like he's doing some pretty good damage. I mean, only 16 kills, but he's also going to take a beating as well because the Red Rune does lower his melee defense quite substantially. The Thane here is pretty much surrounded by the Bestigor herds, so this is great for him. Thanes have relatively poor AP, so he's going to have a little bit of trouble getting through all of these guys here. And you can see the AP of these beasts will get through them eventually. Pretty much this whole time, I've just been cycle charging with the chariots, and they've been doing a great job, just kind of moving down the flank, taking advantage of the mobility, and the fact that the dwarves don't have a Tormentor sword anymore really helped us out quite a bit. Granted, I still think dwarves have plenty of options, but it's a little bit tough to engage the Beastmen frontline head up like that with... maybe if you had like Iron Breakers and stuff like that, you could kind of hold that charge, but I think with the Longgrids with Great Opens, I just don't think they can match up against the Bestigors in terms of the raw shock damage. Over here, these Longgrids with Great Opens are getting broken down. Over here, you can see Algrim's getting pretty much surrounded. He tried to chase some of those throwing axes off, but at this point, it's mostly just going to be cleanup. You can see the bounce power is shifting in my favor here. The Ungors are swarming. They dealt with the artillery. The chariots are charging in with their angry bacon and just running over some of these Longgrids. So definitely some good stuff there. Morker over here also was able to win this engagement. I did take quite a bit, though. I mean, if you look here, a lot of my Bestigors are pretty beat up. These ones are pretty beat up. These ones are as well, and I think the other two groups are broken. So the Dawi front line didn't do bad, but I think having their flanks compromised and those organ guns not generating a lot of value was really punishing. For example, if he hadn't had those organ guns and just had 2,000 gold worth of more infantry, my front line probably would have gotten buckled, honestly, and had like a runesmith and then maybe like a couple dwarf warriors or miners with blasting charges. I'm sure I would have lost that front line engagement, but ultimately the organ guns just didn't pay off. And I think a lot of that was the deployment. Yes, they got some additional volleys on my Centaurs, but he should have probably deployed like back here on the low ground. Forced me to run. I would have taken more organ gun fire. So I think his desire to be honorable here was a little bit backfired a little bit. But Ungrim does fall, and from this point, it's basically cleanup. So you can see all these Ungors are just going to be surrounding. So that was the first game. The next one is going to be Vampire Counts, if I'm not mistaken. We'll take a quick look at the breakdown here, just look at kills and all that kind of good stuff, and then we will jump over to the second game. So yeah, I definitely like that build though. I think it would be pretty safe against most dwarf builds, but yeah, I think a really kind of staggered dwarven front line with Norgrimlings as well as like blasting charges. So for example, if you had like blasting charges up ahead of his main line and forced me to waste my charge bonus to get mucked up and I'm taking organ gun fire, I think that would have been better. But the reaving groups of Centaurs as well as the chariots definitely did very, very solid there. But yeah, I think it was just a big thing was deployment. I think if he had been deployed further back and had left the Slayers, put the miners up in the vanguard there, it would have been a little bit of a smoother battle for him. So anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoyed that first game. Now we're going to be jumping over to game 2. So we will see you in just a second. All right, guys, and now we're back with game 2, which is going to be a showdown between the Vampire Counts and the Tomb Kings. So as far as our Lord goes, we're going to be going with good old Heinrich Kemmler. I definitely like him quite a bit. He's very cheap. Of course, he does have the Cloak of Mist and Shadows. Is that what it's called? I think it's called the Cloak of Mist and Shadows, but it does make him somewhat tough to kill, despite his relatively, well, he does have 45 melee defense. Yeah, he has really high melee defense, but he does have the Cloak of Mist and Shadows, the ability to summon KRELL, and something I've noticed about KRELL, I don't know if they changed the rate at which he degenerates, but it seems like he lasts much longer than he used to, so definitely happy about that. And if you summon KRELL on top of like a Bone Giant or your Shopti Great Bows, he can cut them down incredibly fast with his bonus first large. So we do have Raise Dead as well as Invocation of Nehek and the Chaos Tomb Blade, which is kind of a cool little thing that gives melee attack and heals and regenerates, so all kinds of cool stuff there. For the front line, we do have an entire core of the Graveguard. So Graveguard, that's one of the advantages the Vampire Counts do have, is they just have better infantry. So the Graveguard have higher armor. They have a true bonus versus infantry, which I think is it like 5 or it looks like it's actually 8. They can definitely do very well in the front line. They'll crush Nehekar warriors. They do well versus Tomb Guard, and honestly, they're just very, very solid compared to the Tomb King's infantry. So I was kind of hoping to win that frontline engagement through attrition, get Heinrich Kemmler with KRELL to kind of take care of some of the bigger guys, and of course support. We have a couple Skeleton Spears, so 2 groups here. On the flanks, we do have Dire Wolves as well as the Dire Pack. And the Dire Pack does pretty good against a lot of the Tomb King's constructs and things like that. It won't necessarily burn them down, but the bonus first large helps, and they obviously aren't going to break off and route like Chaos Hounds would, so I like that. We got Fellbats here to just to shut down archers, so if he has you Shopti Great Bows or Bone Giants or anything like that, we can basically just send in the Fellbats to muck those guys up. And of course, you always got to respect the Tomb King's construct play. As such, we do have 2 Terror guys with anti-large, armor piercing, and poison. So hopefully these guys can do the job. For my opponent's army, front line of Tomb Guard, secondary line of archers. So he does have the Blessed Legion of Fox here. He has skeleton archers, and then he does also have a Bone Giant. So Bone Giant's going to be pretty scary, but I was expecting Ushapti Great Bows and Bone Giant, so I didn't bring anything that was that great of a target. The Bone Giant, with its anti-large, can pick off Terrorgeists, but the thing is, Terrorgeists, if you just run back and forth and side strafe, it's very hard for the Bone Giant to consistently hit them. So I think they're going to be somewhat safe. He does also have 2 Tomb Princes on horseback, which I think is a very good choice against Vampire Counts, anti-large. And of course, Tomb Princes have, Tomb Strike isn't that good because Terror doesn't matter against vampires, but I think the double Tomb Prince plus Cetra is very strong. So he does have Cetra with a couple spells as well. It looks like he does have Narrow's Incantation of Protection, which is on a very short cooldown, so you can spam this relatively quickly. And he does have the Blessed Blade of Petra and a Skeleton Spearman in the back. And that is pretty much it. So let's get this show on the road, guys. So the Bone Giant just shooting into, it looks like it's going after the Sternsman. It does take out 6 models there, so honestly, that's probably one of his better targets. You could try and snipe out Heinrich Kemmler, but I guess shooting at the Terrorgeist would be good as well. But the Bone Giant pulling up his great bow here, and man, that is such a cool looking animation right there. So he does shoot in and clips the formation of the Sternsman, taking out another 4 models. In the meantime, I'm going to be flying in my Fellbats. I think I do send them into the Skeleton Archers and the Blessed Legion here in just a moment. And my Direwolves are getting up and around the back, so I'm hoping that I can break my opponent's front line, so then he has to push forward his skeletons to deal with me here. But the Blessed Legion is going to be shooting into the Sternsman. This is actually going to hurt, because they are going to sunder the armor, putting them down to 60, so you can see Heinrich Kemmler is going to be using the Invocation of Nehek, but man, that is a ton of damage coming in. That's why I brought them. They have silver shields, they're kind of designed to take this sort of damage. And I am also flying in my Terrorgeist. I'm going to be using my Breath Attacks on the Bone Giant, who can't really get out of the way terribly fast, and it does, maybe like 500-600 damage, if even. I can't complain about that, a little bit of free value. So in the meantime, my opponent is going to retaliate. He's going to get his Blessed Legion, he's going to get his Skeletons, and he's going to start shooting at my Terrorgeist. So what I do is I just run them back and forth and just waste his ammunition, just waiting for my troops to win that frontline engagement. So here the Graveguard are going to charge into the Tomb Guard. So it's going to be a pretty bloody affair here, but I think the Graveguard will have the advantage in the long run. And this is going to be a massacre. This is going to be the Sternsman versus the Nehekar warriors here, who have like pretty poor AP and relatively mediocre defensive stats. So you can see the Sternsmen are already melting those guys pretty quick. Over here it's relatively even, but the Graveguard do have a slight edge. I'm able to get some around the flanks because I did bring a very heavy infantry army. So my Graveguard get around the flanks, they attack these Skeleton Spears, which is then going to open up a pocket here for me to potentially come through. And I basically summon some zombies or skeletons with Heinrich to muck those guys up, and the Direwolves actually slip in. So I'm able to slip them in once he goes to defend against the Skeleton Warriors, and that allows me to get on these archers, which is going to be so good. Yes, the Terror guys haven't done too much yet, but at the very least, they've kind of held my opponent's attention here. So I'm like, all right, I'm tired of just flying around. I'm just going to go and do a rear charge on these Tomb Guard, which is going to give my Graveguard the win in this engagement, hence opening up their advance here in the secondary line. Right here, you can see that Heinrich Kemmler, or not Heinrich Kemmler, but Cetra is going to be attacking Heinrich with the Tomb Prince, so Heinrich does get knocked over, but he's very tough to kill. With 45 melee defense, Cloak of Mist and Shadows, Perpetual Regeneration, I definitely think he's one of the more competitive Vampire Counts lords, which feels so weird to say, but he's just dirt cheap. He allows you to go wide. KRELL is pretty damn good, and yeah, that's pretty much it. Have I summoned KRELL yet? Where's KRELL? I know that's like, isn't that a meme? I'm pretty sure that is a meme, but KRELL is, he's going to make an appearance here relatively soon. I think I summoned him to fight Cetra. But anyways, the Skeleton Spears are going up and around the flank, so for the first time, Vampire defensive units are actually on the flank here. We're able to munch on these Skeleton Archers here with these Direwolves. My other guys are engaging as well. And you can see these Skeleton Warriors have actually surrounded this Tomb Prince, so we have gotten into the back line very efficiently. The Bowchine's back online, just kind of shooting at whatever it can. Heinrich Kemmler's got the moves like Jagger. He's it looks like the Blade of Setep was cast on him. But now that Cetra did kind of overcommit here, we're going to go to Pound Town. So KRELL plus the double Terrorgeists come from the distance now that my opponent has committed. So just really patient here with the Terrorgeist, but man, this is going to be so much damage as KRELL just pimp slaps half of his own troops. But yeah, you can see that Cetra is probably taking a ton of damage, as KRELL does have a bonus for his large, and he hits pretty damn hard. 470 is no joke with 50 melee attacks. So KRELL's able to do pretty good. Invocation of Nehek going down, and you can see that Cetra is basically just getting trash canned right now. The double Terrorgeist applying poison, so there's no escape for the perishable one here. In the back, he does use his Ushapti summon, but there's Skeleton Spears, and Heinrich is going to be helping out as well, so they're going to do pretty much minimal damage. We do also surround the Bone Giant with some of our doggos here, so the Angry Doggos as well as some of these Spearmen. And the Bone Giant only has 25 melee defense, so honestly, over the course of a long engagement, these Spears could probably kill the Bone Giant, or at least bring it really low. In the back, the Tomb Prince is being attacked by the Dire Pack, which have actually done a ton of damage against him with their bonus for his large. And that's pretty much it. Cetra is going to die there, and it looks like my opponent is going to bow out. So I know that was a relatively quick game, but I thought it was still a good illustration of the effectiveness of this build, and I did like it. I think that the infantry fight is going to favor you. You have the Terrorgeist, which You can lose out on that aspect of the engagement, but I think if you're very patient and careful and tactical with them, you can get some pretty good value. As you saw, Cetra overextended once. We popped KRELL to kind of pin him in, and then the Terror guys just came and gave him the business, which was great. And the Doggos, of course, do a pretty good job. Dire Pack and the Dire Wolves, always happy with those guys. Fellbats, yeah, they basically... What did I do with the Fellbats? I could have sworn I sent them in. I'm pretty sure I sent them in against archers, but it would be really funny if I just like flew them off the map and just forgot about them. But regardless, I think the build was pretty good. And for my opponent's build, against vampire counts, I think the front line is kind of a, it doesn't really matter too much what you bring, but I think cutting the skeleton archers, Bone Giant, I don't know if I'm a huge fan of the Bone Giant here. Maybe bring like one Bone Giant's fine. Cut these skeleton archers. I think you need like a true anti-large monster, like getting like a Necrosphinx or something like that. Or yeah, I think that's really helpful. Or even Ushapti Great Bows, which are more efficient at taking out Terrorgeists. And then you can just stack them with Tomb Guards with Halberds, which I think are very, very good in this matchup. Is a little bit safer. But anyways, very well played to my opponent, Zegan the Leveler. Look forward to running into again on ladder. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this 2-for-1. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.